What's up, headbangers? Today, I'm spinning the wax with Brady Deeprose of Conjurer, and we're listening to Opeth's Watershed. Don't go anywhere, it all starts right now. Please welcome Brady Deeprose to Spinning the Wax. Brady, it is so good to have you on. How are you doing this evening over there?
I am good. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm so into the concept of what this is. So,
Fuck
as
yeah.
soon as our PR popped up and said, "Do you want to do this?" I was like, "Absolutely, I do."
I'm so glad. And, all I mean, I've been doing this for pretty much just over a year now, which I can't even fucking believe it at this point. And the artists have appreciated it and everything like that. So I'm glad that you're down with this and happy to do my experiment and everything.
No, I love it.
We'll get into talking about the album and everything like that in a little bit. Well, first I should ask you this before we get into the record. How are you doing as far as the lead up to this album and everything like that? I know this is not exactly old hat for y'all, but you're still in the, I'd say, burgeoning parts of the band where you're still getting listeners and trying to do what you can and figuring out the sound and everything like that. So while you've released a few albums before, I know this one carries a lot of emotional weight for you and Dani and the rest of the band. So how has it felt this time around getting this album out there and in the lead up to it?
Yeah, it's funny. I was actually just watching an interview Dani did with someone earlier when they kind of opened with the same question and um, seeing the way they respond versus how I feel is always interesting
Yeah.
because I've always been the one in the band that does the kind of the admin, the behind the scenes. I've managed the band for the last, decade. So I try and shield everyone else from as much of the boring bullshit non-artistic parts of being in a
Okay.
band as
That's
much.
the sword that you're going to fall on.
Yeah. But and again, it's because that is my strength. That's like what I found was my niche and what I could really contribute to the band in a
Mm,
really meaningful way. So that's always been what I've done. And we've always been a very art forward band in that we're going to make the album we're going to make. It's all it is to please the four of us, and we'll put it out there, and whatever happens, happens. And on this record, finally, we've done something that is like quite emotionally resonant,
mhm.
in a very open way that we have not been before. So suddenly, it's like, oh, actually, it is really important to like get this out to people and really share this, and it feels like for the first time we've really put a lot of effort into that and a lot
Mm.
of effort into promoting it and not from a we want to sell 1 million copies of the vinyl. Be great if we did, but like that's not what this we wouldn't be making this kind of music if that was the goal.
Of course, yeah.
From a perspective of this is really important to us and we're really proud of what we've done and we would just love for as many people to kind of have the opportunity to connect with it as possible because
Yeah.
that's the trick. You can't control whether someone likes something or not or whether they have any kind of emotional resonance with it, but if you get it in front of as many people as possible and give them that opportunity,
Hmm.
that's all you can do, right? So yeah, that's been the goal is just to be more active on social media and to we actually just launched the album listening event that we're doing that is something kind of unlike anything we've ever done, and just really trying to connect with people in a more meaningful way. And it's trial and error and it's our first time doing anything kind of on that wavelength, but
Yeah.
it feels good. It's a lot of effort, it turns out,
Of
but
course.
it feels good, and it feels like we are doing everything in our power now to support the music and not just making an album that we like and then like washing our hands of it.
Yeah, and it's so good to hear that because I think this album is so powerful and I feel like it's gonna be a really important album, not just for Conjurer and the metal scene, but for whoever this album touches and affects, given the subject matter of this. Because, this relates to me too, because while not in the same way of, coming out as non binary or getting an autistic diagnosis, but I did get diagnosed with ADHD last year, which puts me on that neurodivergent spectrum because, it's basically a coin flip. If you have autism or ADHD, you probably have the other, right? So even though I know that Dani has gone through a lot to make this album and stuff like that, and what I have gone through pales in comparison to that. There's still a little bit of that, I found out in my 30s that, oh, there is a reason that I feel weird and isolated and not like everybody else and all that stuff. And now that I know that, it's like, fuck yeah, we can just like go ahead bounding and I get to figure out how to go with that knowledge, So I'm glad to hear that you guys are trying to do everything that you can to get this album out there because I just think that it is it's a fucking great record and it's going to be so important to a lot of people, I think.
Yeah, I hope so. It's certainly really important to us. And I think what you were saying about that, like having that realization of, oh, so many things in my life clicked into place because of, that and like kind of reframing all of those experiences. I feel like, especially growing up, like the song All Apart is so much about that like early childhood and those experiences and not feeling like you fit in and not knowing why.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, qualifying it saying, what I've been through isn't anywhere near as much as Dani, because when we have these conversations, Dani's like, what I've been through isn't anywhere near as much as my friends and
Yeah.
other people that we know. And I think everyone has that tendency to downplay their own experiences, but like really that's what is so impactful to me about what we wrote about on this record is that everyone's been through some variation of not feeling like they fit in or not feeling
Yeah.
like they're accepted or not feeling good in a space that they have to be in. And I haven't struggled with the same challenges Dani has, but we have our own shit. And
Yes, of course, especially nowadays too. Yeah.
right, yeah, I feel like it's the first time in living memory, certainly for me, that every single person alive lived through this insane, the COVID pandemic. Like whether you believe in it or not, like I don't know what your listenership is like, but
I'm sure that is I would assume if people don't believe in the COVID pandemic and they're listening to this, what the fuck are you doing? How did you get here?
right.
you know?
But like whether you believe in it or not, that
Yeah.
period of time that was so fucking crazy for everyone involved, we all lived through that. Like that,
Hmm.
like shared trauma is a thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's wild to be like, oh, this is something that everyone has in common now.
Hmm.
That was definitely the last record played into that a lot, and this one less so much. But yeah, it's been a real exercise in empathy, kind of really understanding where Dani has been at, and then kind of them understanding where the rest of us are at, and kind of coming to that mutual understanding,
Yeah.
and really then building on, they'll come with an idea, and us building on that together. Like it really feels like, as much of a lot of this is really framed around Dani's experiences, it feels like something that we all did together. And really, yeah, I feel so much ownership over this record, and I feel like it is something that we have all really put a lot of ourselves into.
Hmm.
And it just feels really nice to be making a record that is so personal and I think powerful for what it is.
Yeah, and the fact that, you are growing along with your bandmates, both personally and musically and everything like that. But the last thing I'll say before we get into talking about the record today is that kind of what you mentioned about making a record for the four of you, and, it's great if you sell 1 million copies, but, if it doesn't connect emotionally with people or whatever, you can't control that. You just want to get it in front of people. But it's interesting you say that because I think I've, found my way to Conjurer a little bit after Meyer came out. I think it was during the pandemic when I was just like, rinsing every album that I could get my hands on because there was nothing else to do. And it took a couple of listens, but I was like, man, I like this band a lot, because, especially because, the first band that immediately came to mind, we're going to be talking about here in just a little bit. But when Pathos came out, it was interesting. I liked the first song and the last song on that one, but the rest, tried to give it a bunch of listens, like repeated listens over the years, and I was like, it's a good it's technically good. It's just like not connecting with me the way that Meyer did. But then
Yeah.
this one came out, and I was just like, holy fuck! Like, I think that this is the best shit that y'all have fucking done so far. But yeah, this record is just like, I'm so proud of y'all for what you've been able to write and get out.
Thank you so much. It's so funny because I think people are so scared to give negative feedback or like even just like not overwhelmingly positive
Yeah,
feedback to bands and band members and specifically and like especially in these one-on-one scenarios. And I'm like, it is so okay if something isn't for you. And
yeah,
I do look back on Pathos and I love that record, but there are so many things in like the production that I wish we could have done that was, pretty much all because of COVID and the
mm-hmm.
songwriting and like so many little things, like kind of everything we've done up until now. I look back on the albums and I kind of just hear the imperfections and the
Yeah. You're not the
and
first person to tell me that either.
yeah, but this record, like, I've listened to it probably more than any other Conjurer album, which is wild considering, we've only had it finished for a couple months, but I don't hear any of the negativity. I just take it at what it is. Like, it is just the album, and it's like the first time where I've been like, so any of the like disagreements, it got to the point where it didn't feel like there were bad options. It felt like on some of the previous records, there were like hills that I would die on to be like, it has to do this here or it has to do that. And on this, something about the process for this, we got towards the end and everyone was like, yeah, either one. Like it was such a different approach. And so everything kind of feels like everyone got to win on all of those pressure points. So yeah, for
That's
me,
awesome.
I am so happy with this album. I think it's hands down the best thing we've ever done, and I am just so excited to get it out there and have give people a chance to connect with it, and fascinated to see that feedback. Like
Yeah.
it's one of those where we've always been like really uh, strict with ourselves about like listening to reviews and like it's really nice if someone loves the record, but it doesn't really mean anything. Like as soon as you start believing that stuff, it's kind of over.
Hmm.
But in the same way that when if someone's really negative about the record, it's like you're welcome to your opinion, but all that we can do is focus on making the music that we want to make and yada yada
Right.
yada, all that stuff.
Yep.
Stay
Yep.
humble. Yeah, yeah. But I am really fascinated to get the negative feedback on this and just see it's like what is it about this thing that is so for me for what we want it to be. I think this record is perfect. Like there's
Hmm.
so little that I would change if I had the opportunity. Um I want to know what doesn't click with people. Like it's the stuff
Interest.
that
Yeah.
it's just really interesting because like emotionally I'm like, well, it's the perfect record. Like, what do you mean you don't get it? Like, but I think that's one of the best things about music is the debate and the difference of opinion and the difference in taste. And yeah, I hope people like it, but I'm intrigued either way, I think is what I'll say.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Spinningthewax at gmail.com if you absolutely fucking hate Unself and want Conjurer to go fuck themselves after this new record, or just, go to the socials or whatever. But although you did me a nice segue into exactly where we're going next, talking about the differences of opinions and bands and albums and discographies and everything like that, and the band, this Swedish progressive death metal band that you have brought on Spinning the Wax today, certainly has a lot of opinions about them, depending on when you came in the band, what records you started on, how long you've been a fan when you've seen them. So, Brady, my friend, why did you choose to bring on Watershed by Opeth onto Spinning the Wax, a band that I fucking love?
So, this is always a funny one because also love Opeth. They're one of the kind of big influences, especially like really early days on Conjurer. Dani has a big Opeth tattoo. Like that was one of those bands that we bonded over.
Yeah.
Watershed is one of those records that I it's my favorite Opeth record, like
Interesting. Okay.
it blows my mind that it is seemingly either controversial or a bit hit and miss with the fan base. Like I some context, this is the record that I came into Opeth on, so it's always going to be, your first album is the one, but it's not what I discovered. That I discovered them through, I don't even know. I remember hearing the song Demon of the Fall really early on and it
Mm.
being like, this is way too heavy for me. I don't get it. But this was the first album that came out once I was into Opeth. So it was like my new Opeth record.
Okay.
And it just, at that time, 2008, I was just getting into heavier music. And it was probably 2008, 2009 when I really got into this record, but it was just everything that I wanted from music. It had that the clean vocals, the heavy vocals. It was heavy but without being too oppressive, so it didn't really like put me off as like a baby metal listener, and it a metal listener that is a baby, not a listener of the band Baby Metal.
I got
For
what you were saying,
to
but
be
for a second I was
specific.
like, wait a second, hold on. Yeah.
I think it took all of the elements of where Opeth were going with their sound in that kind of more progressive, classic prog rock direction, but held on to all of the cool heavy stuff. And it was that like that middle ground that I think they just absolutely nailed.
Yeah.
And like for like Heir Apparent in standard tuning is the heaviest song in standard tuning, like hands down.
They're like, I think all of Blackwater Park is in standard tuning. I would have to look at that. I don't know. But like, yeah, I talk about this all the time. Like, what the fuck are they doing having songs that heavy in standard tuning? Like, people think that they need to tune down to fucking like drop G or something like that to
Right.
make a heavy record. Go listen to Opeth, everybody. Holy shit.
Honestly, that's where I'm at with it. But yeah, I feel like there's so many like little facets of the Conjurer sound that you get from this record, and kind of Opeth in general.
Yes.
I could have picked Ghost Reveries, I could have picked Blackwater Park. I could, they have so many. I could have picked some of the newer ones as well, for different reasons. But yeah, they're a band that has so much good and so few. Yeah, there are records I'm more or less passionate about, but there's very little that I don't actually think is good at some level. I think there's
Yeah.
so few bands that have such a long career that is so consistently interesting.
Yeah. And I think, I'm sure that we'll get into that, talking about, where they went after this album and
Yeah.
what they're doing now and everything like that. But yeah, it's funny because online it feels like Opeth fans are fucking like divided at all these like little cliques and sectors and all this other stuff. But then when you go see an Opeth show, all the fans are like, we fucking love it all. It's great. Hell yeah. Which is why, the internet is not real life. But it's interesting hearing you talk about that because I had, a very similar yet very different approach to Opeth, where my first album was My Arms Your Hearse, and I've talked about this on the pod before. But so that will always remain my favorite Opeth album, even though I think their best one is Blackwater Park. There's one of those bands that has a distinction, like technically, musically, all of that other stuff for whatever it was that they did. I think Blackwater Park's probably at the top of their discography, but my favorite is My Arms Your Hearse for a lot of the reasons that you said. It was just the first one that I heard, and then Ghost Reveries came out. That was the first one that came out when I was just getting into Opeth and stuff like that. And yeah, it opened so many doors, the clean and the acoustic passages. And then when you get into this one, exactly what you said, I wrote down while I was like re-listening to this, how many little like foreshadowings they have for heritage and sorceress just on this specific record, where it doesn't sound out of place on here. But I was listening at, with, hindsight being 2020 or whatever, I was like, I hear exactly why they wanted to go and do the heritage record after this with some of this stuff in there, which is really interesting. And then even because I hadn't listened to this record since the new album came out, and I even like picked up things that they did on Last Will and Testament in here, because you can feel all of the 70s prog influences on this record that they went fucking whole hog into on the new album.
Yeah, 100%. It's just so interesting that it's like it feels like the child that wasn't prog enough for the prog fans and wasn't heavy enough for the heavy fans, even though, it definitely drops off in terms of weight after the first few songs.
Yes, I agree.
It's still, I don't know, it's just good stuff.
Yeah, it is really good stuff. So we've talked about it. We'll continue to talk about it. You want to go ahead and get into this record so that we can hit play and start listening to this gorgeous song before Heir Apparent comes on?
I'm in. Give me a countdown and I am in.
This is Opeth's Watershed in 3, 2, 1, play.
Yeah, we recently made the switch from the main streaming platform to Tidal. And
okay, how is that?
It's tough. I've been using Spotify for years, and obviously got to the point where I was like, this company, it does not align with my views.
Sure. Yes.
Everything.
After using one platform for so long, right, and you're going through this right now, you're just so used to everything, and then nothing works. But so I have Apple Music plugged into like my laptop, my phone, my TV, my second TV, all of that stuff. And sometimes I'll be listening. I'll like put up my computer that was playing something, and I'll actually hit play, and then it'll ruin the album that I was listening to by saying like, "Oh, someone's trying to listen to your stuff." It's like, I know who he is. It's me.
Right? Yeah. That's been the vibe. Like, I do think that Tidal has definitely made me, because it doesn't show monthly listeners and it doesn't show all of that info. So when you find an artist, you're not colored by, oh, this is a baby band that I've never heard of because they have 50 monthly listeners, or this is a pop artist that has 20 million monthly listeners. All you have is the name and the album artwork and that stuff. So it's definitely made me less judgmental about records, almost, or like less or more willing to try out. Sorry, this is about to drop into, oh, so good.
The thought that I always have in this is that first song is kind of like the intro to Wizard of Oz, where something's going to be wrong. And then this right here, when Heir Apparent comes in, this is the tornado. Dorothy is going to the house all the way around. It's so fucking good, man.
Something that Opeth do so well on this track especially is like the riffs that are just so long. Like they have so many different parts. Like it goes on for a good minute before you get a repeat. Yeah, really into it. But yeah, so streaming wise, I'm still getting used to Tidal, but I do really appreciate that. Like, it's more similar to leafing through your like record collection than it is getting suggestions. Like most of the time with Spotify, I would get a recommendation, or I'd scroll down the main page and be like, okay, what's new? What's this? Just like looking for stuff to listen to. Whereas Tidal, I'm kind of looking elsewhere and then going to the app specifically to find a record.
Interesting. And that's something that I've noticed, just the way that I've grown up listening to music, not having Spotify like that. I'm still very much in the, okay, what do I want to listen to after this? Maybe I'll be like, okay, I'm going to queue up these 3 albums while I'm working or something like that. Or I'll be listening to something and be like, oh, this reminds me of this. I'm going to go and listen to like this artist or this record after that. So, and Apple Music will have the autoplay and stuff like that, but every time they introduce it, I'm like, fuck off. I don't want that. I don't want you deciding what I listen to. So it's interesting to not have that I hesitate to say the word crutch on that, but that just like, okay, after you're listening to here's all the stuff that maybe can be in that with stuff. And, not to say that I don't listen to like, hear the similar artists or,
Yeah.
put on like a Genius station or something like that, which I do think Apple Music is pretty good about. So yeah, I've, especially with Spotify getting the like AI DJs in there and like all of this other stuff where my friends have been complaining fucking night and day about that stuff. It's like, well, I guess that sucks for you.
It is what it is. Like I definitely don't think I appreciate the benefit of the high res audio either because I have a hi-fi system, but if I'm listening to music on that, it's just going to be vinyl because that's my preferred medium
Yeah.
if I have the option. I don't think on a pair of headphones you really get that much of a difference. Danny swears night and day that it is like much better, but I'm like, cool, I'll accept that in my life that it is better, but I don't think I'm getting the benefit of that. But yeah, it's ultimately fine. But I think it's encouraging me to engage with music in a bit more of an authentic way, just with myself. Like that's not. It's not. It doesn't have the social element of Spotify. It doesn't share the stats. It doesn't have the Wrapped and all of that stuff, which is nice and interesting. But you do get for yourself, you can get like a little monthly surprise me. So you can do like your top artists. My top artists the last couple of months have been Koji Radical currently this month. Last month was System of a Down.
Fuck yeah.
August was Baroness and July was Cult of Luna. So that's been my
Hell, you sound like you've been having a great summer, Brady.
been a really nice time. I mean, it is what it is. I don't listen to as much music as I should, or certainly as much as I used to.
Well, I imagine that when you're playing in a band and creating music and also trying to put a record out and all of that other stuff, that probably you probably focus on your stuff a little bit more than everybody else's stuff.
I think that's true. We used to when we first started the band, Danny and I would listen to every single record that came out. Especially there was this site, Realm of Metal, that we used to use, and it was a legal downloading site, but it basically we used it as like an aggregator. It had every single metal record that came out for the most part went up on there. So we would download all of them, and then anything we really liked, we'd then go out and buy the record or buy some merch or go to the gig. And
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it was a real cool portal for finding out about the latest metal releases. And I don't know why we didn't just use Spotify or whatever at the time, but definitely Realm Metal was like, because I was still using my iPod back then, so it was like I'll download everything and put it on the iPod, and then the stuff that I really engage with and want to support, I'll go out and do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely there was a time, especially when we were first starting what we were doing, we were just like absorbing everything and kind of really going from the drumming on this record is so fucking cool.
Seriously, the double bass right here when it comes in, it's just like, oh my fucking god. This song is just like I feel like it's an encapsulation of everything that they've done in a record to this point, which is another reason why I really, really like this song.
Yes, I do have quite a controversial opinion about this song, though.
Oh, really? Please tell me.
I will bring it up in about 50 seconds.
Okay.
But yeah, no, so like it was that time when we were first hanging out, like 2014, where we were discovering hardcore and more extreme metal from like Gojira, Black Dahlia, Murder, Mastodon, where we started, and Opeth, to then kind of branching out, discovering Doom, discovering Sludge, like all of these like subgenres. Dani was a bit more FA with them than me, and they were kind of a big part of my journey. And then together we just kind of like blew those doors wide open. And it was just this time of everything was coming in. And I think a lot of that really shaped the way we approached the band. And kind of that not wanting to stick to a particular nail on the wall subgenre, and really just being willing to bounce around. Controversial opinion, ready? I think the song should finish here.
I agree. I don't think it's that
Oh,
controversial in
let's
here.
go.
No, now I do like this part because when he's, it's very moody, it's atmospheric,
Yeah.
the rid us of your judgment part, like line is cool. But yeah, I agree. The first time I listened to the song, I was like, that's how you end a song, boys. Fuck yeah. And then it keeps going. You're like, oh, I mean, it's not bad, but
Yeah, I love this bit, and I think it would be great in another song or somewhere else. But like, it is so unnecessary for what this. I feel like the song achieves everything it needs to up to that big crescendo and that like note just as it fades out. And I'm like, I will sometimes if I'm listening on my phone, will just like hit skip at that point just as a yeah. But like that was something that me and Dani, whenever we talk about this record, it's always just like Heir Apparent is so nearly the perfect metal song. It just, and again, like this bit is good. It's just like
I will even say it's great. It has that like Harlequin forest type of like dreamscape to it, but I agree. And especially the way that the Lotus Eater starts too. You could have like, you end and then go right into that as a
with
sequencing.
that,
Like,
fading out and then the humming coming in over the top. Yeah, God, someone's got to do a cut of this record that is like 1 minute 20 seconds short.
who we'll get the person that's been doing the they cut down 72 seasons and they cut down Sunjetsu by Iron Maiden by like a little while, so they take an hour and a half or 2 hour and a half record to make them like an hour.
Oh, that's the dream. I mean, I feel like that is something that we actually was really relevant on Unself about. We wanted to keep it to one LP, so like 5 minutes. And we've never really put any um this song. Every time there is like a Opeth misheard lyrics video on YouTube that is like really, really fucking dumb. But I remember this bit was like Baron Wiz Disco Lamb, and it would have like a little animation of like all the dumb misheard lyrics. I remember watching that so much as a kid, thinking it was the funniest thing in the world.
I did that with there was a trivium misheard lyrics for
the boat rudder one.
Yes, boat rudder. Just so that was like part of my personality from like the ages of 16 to maybe like 17 and a half.
100% the same. Yeah, it was just that. Oh, this is the funniest thing in the world, and you're like, okay, let me get on with my life.
Yeah.
But yeah, so trying to cut things short, and like so many of these songs on our record were a lot longer or had more parts, and it was just like that process of how much can you cut and this still achieve the same thing. And yeah, we ended up taking a song out that was arguably one of the best songs on the record, or something that we all really loved, because there was nowhere for it to really sit on the album.
Okay.
And the intro, there was an outro as well that also got cut, and there is the interlude, a plea, and it all came down to the sequencing of how do we get this to fit 45 minutes. It has to be roughly 22 and a half minutes on each side to get the best quality for the vinyl pressing.
Mm-hmm.
How do we make that work with the songs that we have, with the flow that we want to create? Like, it was not written, yeah, all of the songs were written, and then it was a case of piecing it together in what felt like the most natural way. And then it was like something on Watershed. I don't feel like the flow from song to song is as strong as it is on some of the other Opeth records.
Yeah.
Let's say like the fade out of Heir Apparent into the like humming intro of Lotus Eater feels a little bit like, okay, song one is done, now we're moving on to song two, as opposed to kind of flowing through, which is what I really like in a record.
Same.
So it was really, really important for us for our album to have that kind of natural flow. And it then gets down to points where you're like, does this need 1 second gap after it? Does this need 2 like, what's the perfect amount of space between songs? Like, that kind of stuff is just so, I feel like people don't realize how hard that is to get right, and something that
Yeah.
really spend a lot of time agonizing over, kind of more than the songs at time. Nah, it's not true, but it's
But
big.
like it is true because I say that whenever we listen to records, and especially with the what people have brought on in the past, that usually the recurring thing that we always talk about, and I'm sure like longtime listeners of this show will be fucking tired of me being a broken record, pun intended, to talk about sequencing, how great sequencing, oh the sequencing on this album is so good, or it flows, or anything. But yeah, I mean, if you sequence a record right, the listener is not even going to notice for the first couple of times. It's probably the biggest, smallest thing I think that an artist can do with a record is figuring out the perfect sequencing and the way that the songs flow into each other. Again, especially if you're trying to make like an album and not just a collection of songs.
Yeah, I think that's something that I felt for the first. Oh, the tone shift in this little bit where it like cuts to that like slightly distorted guitar. So cool.
Hmm.
Like it's such a vibe shift of a part in a song. I really hope people are listening along because otherwise it would sound insane.
Well, what I do sometimes is if people mention something, I'll bring in the like in the edited episode, I'll bring in the sounds
Hmm.
for just a little bit so that you can hear what is going on. But then I can, get away from with the copyright issues because this is fair use. We're talking about the record.
That's how they get you.
Yeah, right. This
Um,
part right here is sorceress. Right here. Yeah, you can see the vest and the hat and everything like that. The big mustache behind the keyboards right here.
it's so silly. It like I feel like by rights, I'm like this is like circus music and is kind of silly and I should hate this, but I don't know. It like feels so authentic to that like classic proggy vibes where everything was a little off kilter. And yeah, I don't know. It again, when you hear that section on its own and then listen to Pale Communion, I feel
Oh
like
yeah,
Pale
yeah.
Communion is where they nailed that like not heavy Opeth sound. And I
I
feel like
agree.
so much of the interplay, especially with the ride bell on that little section, you hear so much of that on Pale Communion. Like, yeah, really funny to hear those little bits. And like, I never expected them to go in that direction, but
Hmm.
like, it's again, like you said, with hindsight, it makes perfect sense for where they're at.
So how do you feel specifically about, I guess heritage onwards and like, obviously they've kind of now they've come back around because Last Will and Testament brought back Death Growls. Everybody's freaking
Yeah.
out. And obviously Incauda Venetum was I thought was very well received compared to some of the last ones from like, Opeth. I hesitate to use the word true Opeth fans because if you like Opeth, you're a fan of Opeth. No one's a true fan or whatever. But how do you feel about their proggy records and their discography?
I feel like, as a true Opeth fan,
That's TRVU, everybody, just to make it
exactly.
clear.
Um, I feel like I'm on board with everything up to Watershed. I very particularly love Watershed and Ghost Reveries and Blackwater Park. I bounced off Heritage so hard. It was at that time was like I'm no longer into like I was just looking for heavier and heavier.
Mhm,
And they just went in completely the wrong direction for me. And I feel like it didn't feel like Opeth
mhm,
anymore. It felt like Opeth doing a side project, which in hindsight is really cool. But Pale Communion felt like Opeth again for me. Like that was the one where I was like, oh, you took this really bold left turn on Heritage and knew that you would alienate so much of your audience and I guess drip fed it a little bit on Watershed, but nowhere near enough for the turn if you wanted to make that a smooth transition. I feel like it takes bands a record or so to like really nail a big vibe shift like that. And for
yeah.
me, El Communion, other than Watershed, is the most underrated Opeth record. Like I feel like that album is amazing. I think it's stronger at the first half than the second half, but still, like I remember that coming out, and me being like, out of out of respect, like you were saying, even if a band puts out a record that you don't vibe with, you'll give the next one a go.
Yeah.
And I played the crap out of that record in 2014. We were driving to a gig. This was in my old band, in Sheffield, and it was me, the drummer, and the drummer's mum who was driving, and she liked her rock, and but definitely more into like the kind of classic stuff. And I was like, give this a go. She loved it, and I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
like this is the vibe. This is so accessible, but just has a bit more bite. The guitars sound a bit more like Opeth. The songwriting's a little weirder. Like it was just like for that kind of thing. I was like, oh, okay, you've given me that record now. I don't need another, proggy Opeth, capital P proggy Opeth record. Like that's the one, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I agree. And historically, I am also part of the problem because I didn't listen to this record a lot. I think like maybe I gave it like a cursory listen when I was like, oh, album came out. Let's see what it goes, all this other stuff. Like, whatever. Like again, Opeth not for me, still whatever. But I saw them a couple of times live the past few years, and they played at the Ryman Auditorium in Nashville, which you're right, yeah, exactly, fucking mother church of country music. This 2,300, pews for seats venue, but it is probably one of, if not the best venues as far as the audio sound quality goes. Like it's just pristine. So hearing them in that venue play everything from some stuff from Caught of Venetum, because Last Will and Testament hadn't come out, to fucking playing the Leper Affinity with like the gong in the background and everything like that. It was so good. But the first time I saw, I don't remember exactly which order they did this, but on one of the the sets they played Cusp of Eternity, and then the next one they played Moon Above, Sun Below. And I was watching, I was like, I haven't listened to these songs in a while. These are fucking great. So I went back and listened to Pale Communion, and exactly what I said. I was just like, holy shit! Like it's not gonna top any of the other like ones I really really love. But as far as like, I'm the same way. The proggy albums are at the bottom of my list as far as the discography goes. But yeah, Pale Communion's probably like somewhere this and Watershed are probably right there in the squishy middle, because the albums that are really, really good, they've got like 6 or 7 of those. So it's like, yeah, like I like Watershed, but it's in the middle of the discography. That's not a diss to Watershed. That's just like the rest of the records are so fucking good.
So cool that you can have a band that has like so many different eras with such like defined sounds that you can have passionate fans, and like you can have 5 Opeth fans that will passionately argue for a wildly different era of the band. And like, yeah, it's just like there are so few bands that have that kind of pull and sway and are still like, I hesitate to say relevant, because I don't know if they're still part of the or trying to be part of the conversation of like cutting edge new music. I feel like they're at the point where they're just like, we're just making the music we want to make, and that went into wearing a lot of hats and doing 70s prog, and then kind of like have veered back into heavier stuff now. But it kind of feels like they don't give a fuck anymore. They're just like,
I don't think Michael Ackerfeld has given a single fuck ever from any from any interview that I've ever seen of him. And I liked Last Will and Testament, but I felt like for Opeth fans, it might have been like the monkey paw curling. Like there's some Opeth fans out there being like, all right, we want the return of the Death Growls. We want heavy Opeth again. Like Caught of Venetum was great, but let's fucking go back to like what they used to do or something like that, right? So they wished and the monkey paw curled, and they brought back all of the death growls, but then turned all of the prog up even like higher to like, oh, you thought that we were getting proggy on Sorceress, everybody, let's go on this one. So I thought that the new album was kind of like a mix of kind of all of those things,
Really briefly, the outro of that last song where they're like detuning the acoustic guitar while it's being played.
Yeah.
It's rent free in my head. That's such a fucking good idea. and it's so upsetting in its execution. I wish that we had got a chance to do that before they did, because I feel like Opeth have the monopoly on that idea now.
Yeah, because you can't just do that without saying like, "Oh, well, Opeth did it first."
Yeah, right. And it's just like you would need to just, it has to be on an acoustic to have that same effect, and it would have to be a similar part that uses a lot of different notes. It's just like there's no way of doing it without just straight ripping it, and it's really fucking annoying because I love it.
Well, hey, you know what you say? Good artists borrow, great artists steal. So just like fuck it.
Yeah, right. One day. But no, like the Last Will and Testament, I have given it a couple of listens. I've not listened to it more. I saw Opeth a couple of times over the summer at festivals, and they played a couple of the tracks off it. My issue really with this album is them not titling any of the songs.
Yeah, yeah,
So frustrating. Like as much as I want to put on a record and listen to it front to back, like as the artist intended, and so in theory should not matter. So hard to be like, oh, that amazing bit in number three. Like, did you not like? No, come on, guys. Like, give me a title. So I found it frustrating, maybe even on principle, to go in harder on this record because of the lack of title. But the listen through I had, I liked, and I like that it's conceptual, and I like that it's just like a bit weird. Like I'm friends with Opeth's PR in the UK, and she was like telling me about the concept of the record
hmm
before it came out, and I'm like, why have they chosen to do this? This sounds so weird. And she was like, yeah, like Mikhail just thought it sounded like was a cool story and was like, fuck it, I'm in. Like that's kind of where they're at as an artist. I love that in the willingness to go, yeah, our entire next album will be this weird concept. And that's
yeah.
like it's not linked to anything, it's based on, a story or whatever. Like I'm so here for the almost arbitrary nature of it. Like yeah, all about it.
It also is a cool like lesson in not being afraid to alienate your fans, I guess, which you talked about how just basically they knew that they were going to be alienating so many of their fans when they did Heritage and stuff like that, right? And obviously they're very big higher profile bands that have just like done a 180 switch or tried to do something different, and it just like completely bites them. But I appreciate them not caring, and just being like, fuck it, well, we're going to do this because like this art is for us. And also, I think they probably have an idea that the type of prog fans that love Opeth, the keyboard warriors and stuff like that, are going to get mad at anything that happens if it's not Blackwater Park again or anything like that. But yeah, I think that it's just such a I don't know, maybe an inspiration for some bands to just be like, just do whatever the fuck that you want, and you can still, people still go to Opeth shows, right? Obviously, they're still putting out records, they still want to hear the old stuff and stuff like that, and they still sound fucking great. So yeah, man, I just like they're such a unique band for everything that they do, whether it's the sound that they've been doing for years, how they've changed throughout the years, how they approach their music and how they go about it. And it's just like, you can't try and be Opeth. You can only try and like get a little bit of that splash from them. But I just think that they're just such a unique band, and I look up to the way that they're just like, no, fuck it, we're gonna alienate people. We don't care.
Definitely. I think as well, something that as I have got a bit older, I used to be so mad when a band I love changed. And I'm like, why are you doing this? Like, you're perfect. You've nailed X. Why are you not just like giving me more of that? And now I'm more, I love it when a band that I really like puts out a record that I love. More now I find if they just do the same thing again, I'm like, oh, I've already got that.
Yep.
Like I don't need Opeth. I'm not sat here going, Opeth, I wish that you had just done four more watersheds after this record, because something that we always say in Conjurer is that if we do the same thing again, it implies that we didn't do our best version of that thing the first time.
Interesting. Yeah.
It's like an admission of us not making the most high quality thing that we could have done. Yeah, like that's so that for us, it's always been a case of we're always going to do something different. We will like throw out ideas if it's like, oh well, that's just what we did on this song, this album ago, or okay, if we're gonna write fast song, it's not going to be like Ratch off Meyer, it's not going to be like Suffer Alone off the last record. Like it needs to do something new or be a fresh take on that idea. And if you like extrapolate that out to albums, that's my shift in mindset has been from with Opeth especially is like I actually don't want to hear you do a pale imitation of Watershed. I would rather you do a heritage and me be like, cool, that's not for me, but like at least it's something different. And then
Hmm.
eventually you'll put out a Pale Communion and it's like, oh, actually, this is looped back around to being for me, even though it's something wildly different. And I would never have known I wanted this or would have even thought to ask for this from Opeth.
Exactly.
Um, Now I get to enjoy that record. Like I would rather have a band put out, two fucking amazing albums that I love and then completely shift gear and put out a load of stuff that may not be for me, but is at least different or interesting or challenging in some kind of way. Because
Hmm.
it's better for the art form than just diluting what you're doing with the same old shit.
Yeah, 100%. And also, I mean, I don't know any off the top of my head right now as I'm saying this, but I mean, like you can think of bands that have been around for a while that have had that period where, they had the album where things changed or something happened or all this other stuff. And then you get time away from that. And, with time, people are looking back on that being like, oh, no, actually, no, I like that record because of, X, Y, and Z or whatever, because it started this shift into doing this, or, you saw that they were trying to do something different with that. Like, I guess, like Turbo from Judas Priest is probably an example that comes up with that. Like, people fucking hated that record when it came out because of the synths and, oh, they're going like 80s pop and they're following the trends and all this other stuff. But, I listen back to that record nowadays. I'm like, this fucking record fucking rules, man. There are some great songs on there. Out in the cold, like, come on, give me a break.
I feel like the best band for that is Metallica.
Yeah, are
Like,
you load and reload?
yeah, load and reload, but even something like fucking Lulu, where I'm like, obviously this is batshit mental and like it's so much more interesting than Hardwired. Like I
Mm.
would put on Lulu any day of the week and
Interest.
hit
I won't
on.
agree with you there. I will put on Hardwired every single day of whether going back to Lulu.
I don't like thrash metal, so
Okay.
that's kind of
There.
fair
Well,
enough.
yeah, that's definitely going to be a problem.
But like I would still I like they're a band that I'm like they've always taken swings and it's always been interesting in some kind of way, either the story behind it or the actual result or whatever. Like in our on tour, we will watch some kind of monster at least once per tour and have been doing that for the last 5 years.
Is this
We
like a hey guys, we don't want to become like this. We got to know what not to do.
No, this is at least the belief within the band is that Some Kind of Monster is the best movie of all time, and at least half of the band would argue that in court, I think.
Okay, I need to know the opening arguments for this one.
I'm not on the so I really like Metallica, but I the record I got into them on is Death Magnetic.
Whoa,
Um,
cool. Okay, yeah,
I,
yeah,
I
yeah.
got
That's a
into
totally out of left field one for someone's first Metallica album. I'm so fucking here for it.
so I right. I got into heavy music. I will get back to Metallica, but it's kind of tangential. So
Sure, we've got
I
time.
right, literally. We're at the string section of Hessian Peel. We got time. I played cello at school and got into playing in orchestras and stuff like that, and just wasn't really a big music fan. I just like took cello lessons to get out of religious education lessons at school. That was
Fair.
the cello was the instrument that clashed with that. So I was
Good
like, oh,
choice.
Hail Satan, let me get into that now. Just wasn't that into music. And then, despite all I did really was playing the cello and was doing all that. And then I go to high school and I heard Four Words to Choke Upon by Bullet for My Valentine. And I was like, what is this? This is amazing. Like, the shouting's a bit much, but like it was literally someone played it to me off their phone, and I was like, "This is crazy! Like, I need to go
Cool.
and get into that." I was like, top of dad, I was like, "Dad, I've discovered thrash metal," and he was like, "That is not thrash metal, but I appreciate your candle there." Um, I remember that being like really pivotal. But then we had an assembly, and Pete Jolliffe, who was the son of the head of IT at the school, his band played, and they played Sweet Child of Mine and Enter Sandman. And I didn't know what a cover was at the time, so I was like, "Yo, this is the best band that has ever existed." I,
Why are these guys millionaires? Holy shit, they're gonna go on to be famous. That's
I was like looking
amazing.
around. I was like, "You guys seeing this? Like, this is crazy." Um, and so I went home and was like telling my dad about it, and he was like, played me those songs, and I was like, these are amazing. I really got into Bullet for My Valentine and was listening to a lot of that stuff and found some Slipknot and would watch Kerrang and Scuzz, which were like the metal MTV channels in the UK. And after about 9 p.m., suddenly they started playing heavier stuff, and it was like, oh man, this is great. I got into like, Avenged Sevenfold and all of that like new wave of metalcore kind of vibe. That was all my thing.
Yeah.
And then I was like, all right, well, I should try and like Metallica seemed to be like the big band I'd had. I Disappear and I liked it, and I had Memory Remains and I thought it was heavy, and I had Enter Sandman and I was like, all right, well, Master of Puppets and Ride the Lightning and all that, they seem to be like the ones, so I'll give them a go. And my introduction to metal being these like modern, slick, polished metalcore albums, I was like, this just doesn't sound heavy. Like I just could not click with the older production style.
Interesting. Yeah.
So for a while, I was just like, I guess Metallica's just not for me. Like, um, whatever. And then Death Magnetic came out, and I was like, oh, this is like modern sounding. Like, I get this. This is great. And it was like right at that time when I was still, like when you first get into, like, really get into music and you're like,
Hmm.
everything is great. Like,
Yes.
everything's the best. Like, I rinsed that album. Me and my dad went to see them at the O2 Arena in London, and it was supported by The Sword and Machine Head.
Fuck
Uh,
yeah, that's awesome. I remember when Machine Head was touring because Machine Head toured with Metallica in the States too during that tour.
it was, yeah, On the Blackening, which, again, another album that I didn't get at the time and now, like, absolutely fucking love. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I had these, like, core memories of Metallica around Death Magnetic. So, like, always just in my head, that was like, it was like Master of Puppets and Justice for All and Death Magnetic. Like, they're the ones that everyone loves. So to find out as a, I guess, really over the last 10 years being in this band that everyone doesn't love Death Magnetic.
Yeah, I
Um,
do. I do think it is probably the best of their like post reload albums. I would
oh
have to
yeah,
say.
okay.
Yeah,
We that gets played a lot on tour as well.
cool.
Mainly for the comedy of it having some good moments, but it also really upsetting Dani because they can't stand the song Cyanide. We call the day that never comes the song that never ends.
It is a very long song. This is
It's just
the
yeah,
song that never ends.
let's bang on about seven more outros on the end of that. Why not?
Yeah,
So like it's become a bit of a meme, but yeah, we always go to bat for. I think Danny's favorite is Justice. Noah's is probably. I mean, I think everyone else loves Justice and mine's Death Magnetic.
that's
But
funny. I'm a Master of Puppets person through and through. Ride the Lightning's probably next. I was looking at the track list because I haven't listened to this one. All Nightmare Long, I think is that's a great Metallica song. I think that's probably my favorite on that record. Honestly, that's the one I usually always go back to on that one.
It's just so hard to look at that because I'm going, that was just your life. All right, banger. End of the line.
It's
Banger.
pretty big, yeah.
I'm just like, it's just that record that has been with me for so long. Doesn't need to be an hour and 15 minutes long. That's
No, of course not. You could easily get rid of Suicide and Redemption and
exactly what I was
you know.
about to say. Hands that. And probably, even though I think that verse riff is so funny, I would cut Suicide Redemption, Cyanide.
Yeah, I'm not a
Uh,
fan of Slide. That was one of their singles too, if I remember,
yeah,
wasn't it?
that I remember
It
them
was
playing
not. I'm sorry.
Jules Holland live on TV, and I was like, "Yo, this is great." No, it's silly. But there's just some insane vocal deliveries on that song that are just so silly. Like, yeah, that I don't know. I think that album's great. Like, I'm like beyond objective at this point. I just can't tell
Of
anymore.
course. Yeah.
So yeah, I would love for people to compare the new Conjurer record to Death Magnetic. That would.
Okay, yeah. Spinningthewax at gmail.com, everybody. Let's tell us where you find the similarities between Unself and Death Magnetic. Brady Deeprose is dying to know. He wants to know what you fucking hate about the album and also how it compares to Death Magnetic.
It's the big two, right?
Yeah,
It's what
exactly. Oh man, I love that. So you kind of like mentioned this as well to kind of change the subject, but kind of go into what you're talking about a little bit as far as kind of figuring out where you wanted to take Conjurer and not wanting to repeat stuff over and over again. So how do you think, the band, both yourself and the band in general, because I know that you can only speak for yourself, but how do you think that the band has kind of like, evolved in trying to figure out the ways to write music now? And how do you think that has kind of been, I guess, exemplified by Unself?
I will absolutely speak for the band.
Okay,
Uh,
fuck yeah.
and they'll be furious at me for doing so. I think that we tried on this record to go back. Um, the EP and Maya, which was all kind of written at the same time, was just me and Dani writing music that we wanted to hear. Like we played in metalcore bands. We were so sick of that scene and that vibe and that approach and that music, frankly. Um, and we right at the same time we were discovering Converge and Electric Wizard and Neurosis and so much like bands that we don't even directly reference, but Yob, a huge one as well, like bands that were
Mm,
just kind of redefining what was heavy and exciting for us. So we were
yeah.
just like, let's just keep. There's two or three songs that were really Black Dahlia Murder Worship and Gajira Worship and Mastodon Worship that parts of them have ended up in later stuff, but like were like the really early songs that we were still just trying to work out what we were doing that then got scrapped. And Dani had wrote Behold the Swine and from the EP, and then we kind of like we're like, right, this is what it is. Let's like crack on from here. Um, we were just writing and writing and discovering and writing like kind of every new thing that we discovered. We were like, oh, what's our take on that? How do we get that into what we're doing? We then had Pathos, which was for the most part written in the lead up to and then during the pandemic, and
Hmm.
so was really our process around that time was writing everything instrumentally, tabbing it all up on Guitar Pro, getting it 100% perfect, and then adding lyrics on top as like the final layer. That was the approach, but we didn't even get to play any of those songs in a room together. I think we played It Dwells, Cracks in the Pyre, and third song. I don't remember the third one, but it was like three songs we got to actually jam in a room together before recording that album.
Mm,
Uh, and so it was only in the studio hearing those songs come together. I think you can really feel how separate and claustrophobic everything felt at the
yeah.
time. And I think that. there's just so much going on. They're like really overbearing. They're really insular in terms of kind of like lyrical themes. Like everything about that record felt like inwards and closed.
Hmm.
And so the big kind of push from from us and that me and Dani were talking about before the record was moving away from that. So trying to make things feel more organic and feel more natural and have space and kind of room to breathe and not try and just add all the time. Like this record was so much about taking away. And so I think that was down to we gave ourselves like a full month in the studio, which we'd never done before, just to not have that pressure of getting everything finished. We still tabbed everything up, but once the songs were done, or like when we were in the studio, everything was demoed, and everything was just kind of like jammed out. And we got in a room together. We did 2 full weeks of pre-production, split up over a few months, um, and again, we convinced ourselves that getting together in a room just didn't work for us. And we were like, all right, we'll do a week ahead of a festival we're playing in the studio with Joe. It's like a rehearsal for the festival and then also, jamming a couple of the album songs. We'll maybe get 2 or 3. And we got 6 songs down in that week. And we were like, oh, this is weird. Like this feels good. This feels like we're making progress. We're arguing less. We're like just like way more on the same page, being in the same space.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that was kind of really the approach on this record that felt different and felt, yeah, I think it like really has done that. Like there's been so many, like I was saying earlier, trying to remove instead of add, and trying to slim down and trying to really get at the core of does this section or does this riff or does this note actually add to what the song is achieving? And if not, get rid of it.
Yeah.
And so for me, the record feels so much more natural and organic and like I feel like it breathes a little bit in
Yeah.
like a without I don't know, there's not like a non-wanky way to say that, but you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
from playing it, there was something a lot of the guitar parts on Pathos were written by Jan, our old drummer, who was like, if I can physically make this chord shape on my acoustic guitar, then what are you complaining about? It's going in the song. And we were right.
Yeah, that's definitely comes out in Meyer too, right?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of that. Whereas on this, we were like, okay, let's if someone's got a great idea for a riff, brilliant. Now how do we strip that back and make that feel good as well as just sound good? And some of the riffs would get changed to be this riff is so good.
It's so fucking good.
How can we like factor in our personal enjoyment of the playing on this record? We'd never done before. It's always been in service of the song, but I think it was a little bit of let's do this in service to ourselves as well, and like make sure this is a record that we enjoy playing and want to come back and play these songs live, and really like that added dimension is something we've never thought about before.
Yeah, you could almost say that Unself is almost a selfish record, you know?
Ah,
Aha, look at that.
it's definitely a big mix of those ideas, but the organ to end this record,
Dude.
beautiful.
Yeah. We just flew through like 55 minutes of Opeth right there, and it just boom. That's
so
one of the things I love about this band. I wrote this down as kind of like gathering my thoughts about it as far as the band, despite their gargantuan song lengths, always managed to somehow make those song lengths go faster than they feel, which is a whole skill in and of itself, given, I love my 11-minute Doom songs, but sometimes those things take like it sounds like you're turning into a skeleton during those things. And then throughout all of Opeth's discography, their skill to be able to not only have a long song, but keep you invested every second of the way through is remarkable.
Yeah, it's crazy. And that's something like another thing about songwriting that like when I feel the length of a song, it's like I don't want to I don't want the length of a song to come into my consideration during the listening process.
Yeah.
It needs to just finish when it feels like it should finish. And that is like a big thing. A lot of these songs are shorter than we've written before generally,
Yeah.
and that wasn't like intentional. It was just when does this need to finish? And
Mhm.
some of the songs were lengthened a little bit, some were shortened. Yeah, that's a thing that I think Opeth, for the most part, apart from Heir Apparent, do really well. Like just knowing what the song needs, and you can just kind of like you said, breeze through it, and it feeling natural.
Yeah, like the amount of times I've listened to When, which is like, 9.5 minutes long, and it's just like every time that, the little acoustic parts come in, or when he's, singing the chorus, quote unquote, because I don't really think that there actually is like a real chorus in that song. It's just so good. And what, like 9.5 minutes long or whatever it is. It's great.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that there is so much about songwriting that is so intangible as I am not the primary songwriter in this band. I feel like I get really involved, but
Hmm.
the actual amount of material from scratch that I contribute is like real small. I usually get, a couple of decent riffs on a record. So I think that I, more than anyone else, have the closest listening experience to the audience, and so we'll
Yeah,
get
that
that
makes
first
sense.
reaction, and we'll go, okay, cool. This feels a certain way. This feels good. This feels whatever way, and then get really involved in the arrangement, and then kind of like the adding the lyrics and all of that stuff. So I feel like it is something about the way that Dani specifically hears music and kind of crafts a riff. It just like lights up all the parts of my brain that my favorite bands do, which is really fucking cool. And it's like
Yeah.
so cool to just be in that place where I'm like, oh, we're just making the music that I want to hear. Like if there was another band that was doing this, we wouldn't need to be a band. Like,
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. And that's what I hear a lot of times, especially even going back fucking like, generations, back in the 80s or whatever, people saying your early 90s saying like we didn't hear bands that we wanted to hear, so we just made it ourselves. And if that's not a fucking like kick in the pants to start a band, I don't know what is.
right? And like I think that's the funny thing is like the longer you do it and the deeper into the rabbit holes you get, you like start to find all of that music. And I think that is how bands evolve and change, when it's like you're headed down a path and then you hear another band that has like nailed that sound. So then you're like, cool, I'm gonna evolve and grow and go in this direction. Or like,
Yeah.
your priorities change, or like your circumstances as a human change. Like we are wildly different people to who we were 10 years ago when we first started making music. So
Hmm.
like if we were going to put out a record that sounded like Maya now, it'd be like, what are you doing? Like, have you not grown? Have you not changed? Have you not learned anything from being a band for 10 years? I feel like we've played with some of the best that living artists. Like we've been so lucky with some of the stuff that we've done,
Hmm.
and I feel like it would be really insulting to the opportunities that we've had to not grow and evolve, and to not take all of that in, and to not learn from the people that we get to be around. Like it is, I think you have an obligation as an artist that is out there touring to learn and to grow and to evolve. And yeah, I guess I haven't really thought about it like that before, but like that's why I feel so strongly about us not repeating ourselves, because I think it's just lazy and disrespectful to the opportunities that we've been given.
Yeah, and I love the fact that you all are doing that because that as a fan of music, I get to have an album like Unself to listen to now, and get to watch you guys kind of, you know figure everything out. Because again, even though it's the third record, you said, they've been playing together for a decade now, which I think is like the minimum that you have to play before anyone even gets fucking like a modicum of like attention nowadays. Because I've talked to bands that have been around for like 15 years that are just within the past like 5 years starting to, scratch and claw out of their like region and everything like that. But it's, and even with all of that being said, there is still Conjurer on this record, right? Talking about with Opeth, it's not like, you guys are going into the 70s prog route or anything like that, right? It's just, I think that if people really liked Meyer, and especially if they really like Pathos, there's going to be a lot of stuff because the bedrock of the DNA of who you all are as, musicians in a band sounds like it's pretty well the bedrock of everything right there. And then from there, you're just going to kind of figure out where to take that. Is like, am I correct on that one as far as like you kind of know what it's going to sound like this certain thing because you all are creating it, and then from there it's just about how do we augment it in a way that still sounds exciting to us?
100%. Like we are yet to put out successive releases with the exact same lineup on them at any time. So like hopefully moving forwards, this is it. But
Yeah.
you can definitely hear those shifts. It's about the personnel, it's about who we are in the moment. And like you
Mhm.
said, the moniker that we give ourselves is UK Riff music. Like it is music from the UK that is based around riffs because that is what we've always loved and will always be the vibe. It's a guitar band.
Yeah.
Side of that, I don't really want to put any restrictions on what we do. I remember the intro to Choke, like the big slow, like do me this the start of the Maya record. We were like, could this work? Is this a bit too slow? Is it too like triumphant? And like now it feels so obvious that that is how that song would go. Um, I think that those like discussions, as long as it's something we think is cool, are just like breezed over now. Like there is no like barrier to what we're willing to do.
Hmm.
And if we do end up, like Opeth in 20 years' time going down a completely different rabbit hole where it sounds wildly different, I think that will be telegraphed throughout whatever we do over the next 20 years. And I
Sure.
think that it will be a reflection of the kind of stuff that we grew up loving, but I feel like we're making the kind of stuff we grew up loving. Like I
Yeah.
don't, I think Opeth, I think a lot of those bands that break through really heavy music grew up listening to stuff that was heavy for the time, but isn't, objectively heavy. And that shift back to that kind of stuff they grew up with makes a lot more sense. I think for us, it would be like if it were to shift, it would be to like a more, I don't know, like a Baronessy, like rock, more rock focused thing, because there is so much of that like melodic element to stuff we like. I don't know. Even then, I just feel like the energy that we get from making heavy, aggressive music is just so unmatched.
Yeah.
And there will always be some shade of that. But yeah, like I was saying to Danny, like I love this record. What I'm most excited about is like what we're gonna do next because like
Yeah.
I have no idea what it will sound like, but I feel like we have such a good understanding between the four of us and kind of a good working relationship and know how to make a record we're happy with now.
Hmm.
Kind of been like a big trial and error over the last couple. Whereas now, like, I know what I want to do. I know how I want it to sound. I know, like, I understand the process and it's not just trial and error anymore. So, yeah, it feels like whatever we do next is going to feel just as good, if not better.
I'm excited to hear it. But you know, I'll live with Unself for a little while. No pressure to come out and like immediately come out of the gate to to be going out. But yeah, I mean, I think that fans of Conjurer will love hearing that as well. Just given, you know, again, you know, talking about the UK riff rock, you know, you can call Myers sludge or doom or post metal or whatever. And yes, you are probably correct in all those, but you're also incorrect because it's those things, but none of those things. And you know, I just, you know, like, oh, here's an extreme band or here's a heavy band whenever I try to get people in Conjurer, because I feel like trying to say anything else is, you know, when you say, oh yeah, this band sounds like a sludge Iron Maiden, right? Like, yeah, that gives you an idea in your mind to what that band is going to sound like. But with Conjurer, it's just like, no, just listen to it. You're going to feel terrible and great all at the same time when you listen to it. So Brady, before we go, I have just a couple of other things. One is in this talk of writing the record and becoming who Conjurer wants to be, and you know, this reflection of who you all are at this point in time. You mentioned the kind of the churn with some of the members, and how the lineup has been different for each record and stuff like that. Though you and Dani have been there since pretty much the beginning. I'm curious as far as, you know, the journey that you two have taken together, as well as, you know, seeing Dani on their journey to what they've been through to get to this record and stuff like that. Just looking back over the last 10 years, what do you think that, you know, you've learned about each other in this journey that you've taken, and what have they taught you about yourself?
It's an insane question. I'm here for it. Don't get me wrong. Um, I think it's funny, like starting a band with someone, especially one that kind of goes this long. Like it's the long outside of my direct family, it is the longest sustained relationship that I've ever had in my life. Like I've had friends, but you know, no one that I've been tight with consistently in the same, you know, that I will speak to every day or every couple days, like I have with Dani. I've spent more time with them than anyone else that I didn't grow up in a house with, pretty
Yeah,
much.
yeah,
So it's wild. Like it feels so much like a relationship because you know, I met Dani when they were just playing in other local bands, and I was like, yo, they are an amazing guitarist. Like that is I wow, just like blown away. And then when they replied to my like ad looking to start a band, I was like, I cannot believe this. Like I felt so lucky. And then kind of getting to know them as this really timid, socially awkward, shy, but like funny and brilliant human. And then watching them over the last 10 years go from not being able to look me in the eye or like even accept someone giving them a compliment at a show to being the person that is like knocking my door down, being like, when are we going on tour? Like, I want to get out on the road, and like just kind of coming into their own as a fully formed, you know, human is such a privilege. And like to be able to work with someone that I say work, to be able to like do this with someone that I just absolutely idolize is so cool. It's like such a privilege. Like
yeah.
Dani is my favorite guitarist. Like the way they write, the way that they see music, it's just like so aligned with where I am, and I'm sure us hanging out and doing this for 10 years is a huge part of that. Like you grow together. But
Sure, yeah.
yeah, they're the only other person, you know, obviously the other guys in the band as well, but like we just like really are so on the same page and have been more so on this record, obviously with them getting their autism diagnosis and like really coming to understand themselves a lot more in the lead up to doing this record. I feel like we've never been closer. I feel like that understanding is stronger than ever, and that the way that we work as a kind of creative partnership is stronger than ever. Like there
Mm,
were so few things that on this record that we weren't aligned on. Like it seemed like everything that they were saying was exactly what was in my head, and vice versa. It's been so validating, I think, to kind of the friendship and just really to where we're at as musicians and creatives, that it's 10 years in, and we that like we're just like there. We're just
Yeah.
there, you know? I
Yeah.
think that's where we're at, and it feels better than it ever has. And yeah, same with the record. I'm just so excited to like continue creating and see where they're at in, a couple of years when we go to record this next record,
Yeah. And what do you think Dani taught you about yourself through these years?
I spent the big thing that I've come to realize over the last couple of years, is that everyone has their own strengths. Like I spent the first couple of years of being in this band banging my head against the brick wall of Dani's ability as a guitarist. Like I was in awe and felt so bad about myself because I'm like, I am putting in so much effort to be able to play this worse than you, and you have just picked up a guitar and written this riff and playing it perfectly, and just like that, feeling like I had to be as good as them or contribute the same things that they contribute. Like you have to be the main songwriter in the band to be valid.
Mm.
And what I realized is that, and kind of stuff that they've told me, is all of the stuff I feel about them, they feel about me. Like my ability to talk to people and to kind of do all of the non songwriting stuff around the band is like they're in awe of, and they had felt bad about in the past. And then, realizing that we have different strengths and that you absolutely need those diverse strengths. And if I wasn't in the band, Dani would be writing amazing music and playing it to 5 people at the Squirrel Pub in Rugby on a open mic night. And if I was in the band with Dani, I would have a very strong team around us making music that no one fucking likes because it's not very good. And that it's only bringing those two things together that allows it to work,
Yeah, I mean, a band is, this the sum of all of its parts. I mean, obviously there's solo ventures and bands where the one person is all of its thing, but because like it's not just like, oh, I could do everything without limits. Like, yeah, that sounds great in a self-help book, but people do have limits, and you're going to burn yourself out or just completely, break yourself down if you try to do everything by yourself when you know that maybe you're not so good at something, and your time is better spent focusing on something else.
Yeah, for sure. And like I know I have to put in a lot of work to get there musically, but like I am not trying to compete or trying to take that space.
Right.
Like I know my goal is to be able to contribute a bit, be a part of the songwriting, and then play these songs well enough to play them live and to record them on the album. And like that is an actually achievable goal. Like it's still far more effort for me than it is for anyone else in the band. But I'm like, I know where that's at, and that's like where I'm at, and I also know where my strengths lie. So it's yeah, I think it's just about playing to your strengths and really realizing that whatever anyone puts in, it doesn't have to be equal to be valid, and it doesn't have to be there's no like I don't think people should be comparing, oh, this person does this much or this person does that. Like we don't do that. We know that we all just do whatever we have to do to turn up and get the job done. And that's it. Sounds like a football team talk, but like that.
Well, hey, look, you can't argue with results given the fact that this is going to be your second record on Nuclear Blast. You've been playing with so many incredible bands in the heavy metal sphere and touring the world and doing all that. And, about ready to put out this incredible record. I hope, we're sitting here talking about you're so in love with this record. I really love this record. I hope it's not like comes out and just like everybody fucking hates it except for us two. I don't think it's going to be like that at at all, because I honestly do think this is going to be a very important record, not just for the band, but for the time period, and also for people finding everything that both the music and the lyrics and everything are about. So let's cross our fingers, man.
Hey, if people don't like it, it's okay to be wrong.
Yeah. Well, I've kept you talking forever, Brady. Before we go, real quick, last thoughts on Watershed by Opeth, which actually I realized in the beginning that kind of lead in from Coil into I already just Heir Apparent. Kind of reminds me a little bit of the way that the first song in Unself moves into it. I don't know if that was intentional or not, if that's you ripping off Opeth, or it just kind of happened that way. But what are your last thoughts on this record?
Not intentional, but I'll take it. Like, definitely so much of Opeth's songwriting approach has like made its way into the Conjurer DNA, like 100%. In listening to it again and kind of like almost like passively, because obviously we were chatting and like
Sure.
dipping in and out. I think this is a great album. I feel like it it does a lot of different stuff. I think people that were just looking for blast beats will be disappointed, and people that were just looking for pretty bits will be disappointed, and people that were just looking for, like, I feel like this is the Conjurer of Opeth records, where it doesn't like nail its mast to the wall, nail its flag to the mast and do like one thing. It kind of jumps around a bit, and if that's your bag, you'll love it. But I also really get why people bounce off it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just think it has really high highs and very few lows. I don't know. Yeah, I think that especially Opeth fans listening that may have bounced off it or not given it the time of day, I really think it is worth revisiting.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I know that Relapse, someone just did a reissue of the vinyl, which is where I picked it up from. So it is
Cool.
available again on vinyl, certainly in the UK. I don't know about anywhere else, but I yeah, just picked up a copy. So excited to listen to it on the actual deck.
Yes, yeah, it is the best way to do it. I remember the first time I got a reissue of Blackwater Park not too long ago, maybe like within
Oh
the past
yeah.
year. But I had never listened to that record on vinyl before, so like putting in the headphones and it was so good. Yeah, and especially one thing I'll add is, especially if you've been listening to the past couple of Opeth albums and haven't gone back to this record in a little bit, do, because I think you'll see some of the, like I said earlier, foreshadowing of the places that they went, and it won't be maybe as grating as Heritage or Sorceress. Even I like the title track of Sorceress, but as an album, I can't get on with it. I have to listen to specific songs from it. As a full album, I tried just a couple of years ago, and I was like, nope. Brady, it was so great to meet you and chat with you, my friend. Congrats on the record. And yeah, tell everyone in the band that I'm so proud of them as well, and congrats and everything like that. Is there anything else that you want to say before we sign off that we didn't touch on, or that you just want to mention?
Just the normal boring shit. If people are listening and want to pre-order the record, we have them available at Night Shift in the US, so you don't have to pay crazy import fees from the UK. We're going on tour in UK and Europe. It'll be just after the record comes out. We're hoping to get back to America next year, so look out for that. And
Yeah.
yeah, if people want to give our album some time, that would be very much appreciated.
Please do, everybody. I promise you, it's not going to be. It is going to be worth your time. You're not going to be disappointed. So, Brady, once again, thank you so much for coming on, for jamming Opeth with us, and we will see you the next time that you're in, Tennessee or Kentucky or wherever it is that you come that is close to me.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.